Okay. Uh, all right. Now this one. All right. So what's going on, y'all? We got another episode of Real Raw Exchange podcast for you. Of course, I'm Frank. Can I get my co-host to introduce herself?
Hey y'all, this is Matt.
All right. So this week, we decided to go ahead and delve into what's trending on social media right now. Not necessarily mass media, but social media. As far as talking about the passport bros coin term, and also we're gonna juxtapose that with the divestor movement that's also been going on. Okay, so we're gonna call this episode "Passport Bros and Divestor Movement." Are they the same or different? Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and kind of get into it when it comes down to the two. For the ones out there, who don't know, what either one is, I'm kind of give like a basic definition of either two, even though there are still more nuanced definitions of them depending on what influencers you end up talking to or influencers that you have listened to. So what's trending right now when it comes down to passport bros is you have a bunch of men, specifically American men, who are deciding to get their passports because they are more so done with trying to find a suitable mate in American women specifically. And what they're doing is they're getting their passports, going to other countries to either, depending on who you talk to either find a suitable mate as far as someone that they could potentially get married to, or find someone that they could just kick it with. You know what I'm saying? In every sense of the words, clap booty cheeks. So there's a back and forth argument when it comes down to that. What's happening now, as far as the passport bro side, is you're having a lot of influencers that are now trying to discredit the passport bros, movement, if I could say that, in reference to saying things such as, well, for passport bros, they're only trying to, be with women who are yes women. Passport bros are only trying to be with women because they just want to have sex. Passport bros are the ones that, just want to take advantage of women who don't know how to, fend for themselves or do for themselves, which in actuality, when I hear stuff like that, when it comes down to certain media influencers, to me, it sounds like, their feelings hurt for whatever reason. You know what I'm saying? With saying things that are completely biased against the passport bros. In addition to the aspects of how ignorant they are when it comes down to them not understanding the women in other countries that these men potentially could be meeting. Where my whole thing is, why would you downplay those women when apparently it's the men with the passports you have an issue with? You know? But that's one aspect of it. Now you have the divestor movement. So essentially, when it comes down to divestor movement, uh, apparently there is a community, a growing community or movement of black women, specifically black women, that are now saying that they are completely divesting or completely separating themselves, to give synonymous terms, completely separating themselves from black men, period, because they believe black men in the United States have become so toxic, or such of a negative thing or entity to deal with, that they're choosing to divest from these black men, as far as seeing black men as a suitable mate to marry, and are now choosing to be with non-black men, let alone specifically going for white men specifically. So to kind of put basic definitions out there when it comes down to those two, yeah, uh, I'll give my initial take on all of this. um, First off, because I have a lot of different takes. My first take on it when I first heard about it was that I believe when it comes down to the passport bros, there is a certain level of understanding that I do have for them, more specifically for the ones that try to do everything they can to be seen by black women, let alone women in the United States, and they are just always reinforced in being seen as a threat or something to separate from in reference to things dealing with, to give an example, because this is one of the things that most people are now reinforcing not doing this day and age, marriage. You know, a lot of people don't want to get married for so many reasons that we could create, a long, scroll list of the reasons why, But then also we can create a long scroll list of the reasons why we as men and women can't even get along in the dynamic of a relationship, you know, even have some sense of, ability or have the mental capacity to get along and be purposeful in that, you know. Passport bros, in a sense, they're the ones, because you have a mixture. You have ones that are legitimately, in my personal opinion, legitimately are just trying to find their wife. They're trying to find a good, suitable mate when it comes down to someone that is not trying to be in competition with them or challenging them, you know, from every aspect, in life, you know, depending on the dynamics of the situations that they have been in when it comes down to the American women that they have dealt with, let alone there was a reinforcing of an environment where they needed to handle them, where most men don't want to handle a woman, you know. But then also the dynamic of ones that legitimately all they're doing is traveling, enjoying their lives. They never want to be married, and all they want is to be able to clap cheeks with whoever they want to clap cheeks with, and it be consensual. So that's one side. When it comes down to the Divestor movement, so, and I'm gonna put it like this: one of the people that I heard a particular quote from, by the name of Cynthia G. This is one of the things me and Nat were talking about prior to starting this episode. So there's a difference between Cynthia G, Kendra G, which Nat, delves into her platform all the time, because she's mentioned her, in various episodes that we've had, and Tasha K. Okay, so you got Cynthia G. Cynthia G is a notable, when it comes down to influencer, media, a notable divester. She's known to be a divester. One particular quote was she believes that all black male fetuses should be aborted. So when I hear something like that, I hear a level of self-hatred. You know, I hear a level of self-hatred. Even though I should not use that quote as a means to be able to label the whole, divester movement or community in one way. So the way I look at the divester community is the divester community is a combination of black women. On one side, black women that did not have as much experience around black people, let alone good black men, or for that matter, black men who were actually acting like men. That's one side or one piece of the puzzle. But then you also have those women that have been scorned or hurt to the point where they are more than willing to reinforce self-hatred in a way where they will reinforce their hatred for black men by saying black men, harming me or hurting me or doing certain things to me, in various ways, has now pushed me to now divest from them and be with a white man, a Asian man, a Hispanic man, any other man other than the black man. So What's your take, Nat?
I got a lot of takes too, but I'm gonna just mention a few. One, I wasn't gonna touch on the whole Cynthia G thing. Again, this is not Kendra G. This is Cynthia G. So I
Right.
do want to say that. I actually don't know if Kendra G is a divestor or not, and I'm gonna just leave that where it is.
And
But
nah, I don't think she is. Based on
um,
her content, I don't think she is. No, because she does talk about being with black men, so on and so forth. So no.
she does, yeah,
Yeah.
she does. But to Cynthia G's, what, and I read it. I guess she said what Frank said, but she said that all black male babies should be aborted, something like that. And I just think I don't know if I'd say that's self hatred, because when I think of self hatred, I think of it like in the literal sense of like self. And I get where the correlation is, because if she's a black woman and you're saying that I think all black male babies should be aborted, that's just wrong on so many levels. But I just think it's just wrong. I can't even think of a word that's going to describe everything I feel when I hear about that that quote, which she said. It's just, I think it's disrespectful to the black community, and I just think it's wrong on a lot of different levels. Now, that's that. For the divestment movement, y'all, forgive me. I'm gonna try to, I just learned about this, seriously. I shouldn't even say I just learned about this, because I don't feel like it's something new. So let me say that. I feel like it's something that was probably happening low key, but probably wasn't talked about on a like on a big platform, but it was already happening. Same thing I think about the passport bros. I think that now it's at like a surface level where everybody can see it. It's in the public eye, so everybody is, speaking their side on it. But I don't think it's a new thing. I think that black men, if we're talking about black men specifically, have been started looking for women in other countries or from other regions. I don't think that's a new thing, and I don't know if I was talking to Frank about this earlier, where I need clarification, and it's a thing of where, and you probably saw these videos too, but those of you who are making these videos or comment on what the passport bros are doing and not doing, I think that clarification needs to be made, at least for me, y'all. Whether he's talking about like, or whether this whole thing is about Western women, American women, Black women. That's where I'm kind of hung up. Still, I'm still hung up on it, because I'm like, if only the Black women are getting upset at what they're doing, okay. If you've got women, American women or Western world women getting upset at what's going on, then that's something else, right? Um,
I think. I
so
think.
I think that's where I'm kind of like, I don't know if it's a black issue or if
So
it's a women issue,
there
or,
there
or
have
what it
been
is.
there have been more, from what I've seen, because I keep tabs on things that are going on social media, so on and so forth. And there have been more black women that have created videos that essentially them creating the video reinforces, well, if you're a passport bro, go and do what you do because, and then the shaming tactics end up coming in because, i.e., no woman wanted you over here in the first place. I'm going through the list of things I've been hearing. No woman wants you over here in the first place. You're a predator anyway when it comes down to you going over there, trying to prey on those women. The only reason why you want to be with those women is because of the fact that, they hardly speak any English and they don't even know that you're, when it comes down to you being over here, that you're not even good pickings when it comes down to the women over here. There's just a slew of where the videos are created, where my whole thing is you create a video trying to talk to passport bros because you believe most of black passport bros are black men, and you do that, it just shows a sense of insecurity on one hand and a level of ignorance on the other. You know?
It does. I'm not disagreeing with that, but here's something else I kind of thought about, where they accuse passport bros of sex tourism. I did see that also.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
what is it, and trafficking. I don't see how. Again, I have not been following Passport Bros up until recently, like this like today. So don't quote me on nothing I'm saying, but from what I have saw and read so far, I don't see how what they're doing ties into trafficking. I did see the video with the guy. What is his name? Is it Alec? Don't get me wrong. Anyway, it's a black guy who's, I guess, under fire for putting a video up about how much he loves Brazilian women, and I think in the same breath talks, I think, down about black women specifically, and then from that video, black women are responding to that video.
Yeah.
And so that's where, and now I think he reposted another video about how now he's in heat. He's under fire because he's in Brazil. And I saw an article where Brazilian police are warning women in Brazil about passport bros. So here's the thing. Here's how I think about it. I don't know these guys, right? I hear what the women are saying about, look, they're going over to these other countries. They're finding these women who speak, their English is probably not fluent. Whatever they're saying, here's the reality. I think of the situation is that you've, 100% of the passport bros, I don't think that all of them are going over there to find wives. So let's just rule out about a good 10%. Okay, 10% are out there hoeing probably. Okay, but whether they're hoeing out there or hoeing here, I don't see a difference. That's just me personally. Then you've got the other percentage who probably are trying to find wives. And I don't agree with, I saw a podcast where you had two black women who were basically saying what you were saying about, oh, these women, are yes women. These women are, doing what, like whatever they want them to do. They're not educated. They don't, have, this, that, or the third. But here's the thing, ladies, and I'm not taking up for the men or the women. I'm just speaking about what I see. As a black woman, this is not no tan. Okay, I was born this way. I don't think that black women, if in fact black women are the majority, that is giving all this backlash to what they're doing, right? I don't think that they're looking at the bigger picture. I think that they're looking at a very small part of the picture and they're missing like the little like the small important things. Okay. I was a lot of black women weren't raised in, and we've talked about this before. A lot of black people, period, men and women, weren't raised in households where they were able to actually see black love and how it's supposed to develop and grow and things like that. So you don't have that experience. But you have a black man who wants that experience, and he probably wants it with a black woman, but because he can't have it, he decides, hey, I want it with her, but it's not going to happen because of whatever. So let me go out and branch out and see if I can find it somewhere else. So now he's in Asia. I don't know, Scandinavia, Africa. He's found what he's been looking for all this time somewhere else. And the reality is that I don't think that these women are not stupid. Okay, these women are not uneducated. These women, even if their English is not, fluent, that doesn't matter. You're still missing the point. Those things that you've mentioned, I think, are what you see. That's not obviously what he's thinking about, right? And they're fixable things. If her English is not that great, guess what? They can work on that. That's not a huge thing. I think the most important things is what a lot of the women who are giving all this backlash are missing, right? There was a video that was posted by a woman from the Philippines that I saw. She basically responded to the Western women, as she described them, that came after the women who these passport bros were, finding. And one thing she mentioned that she did throw shade, okay? But I like the shade that she threw. And again, I'm for whatever's right here. She threw shade because she had a cup of coffee and she basically said something to the point of, I'm gonna drink this coffee that my passport boyfriend bought me. And the thing with the shade is that she was talking so gentle. She was talking in this respectful tone. Even that alone, I'm not saying that black women can't do that, but it's hard. And I'm a black woman. It's hard sometimes to even speak in a low, not low, but it's even, it's sometimes it's difficult because in some cases you feel like you want to get your point across and you're right. And even if you think you're right, you want him to know that you're right, and you're not going to stop until you get that right. Whereas I feel like in some cases, women in other countries may see like the bigger picture, and they may not feel like, okay, I I may not need to prove my point.
I think
I just want to do what's the betterment for the overall,
I'm gonna
for the
just say
global
this.
relationship.
I'm gonna just say this. In the West, or for that matter, well, when it comes down to westernized cultures, I'll say that because it's not just in the United States; it can also be in the UK. Because to give an example, feminism is very prominent over in the UK, just the same as feminism is very prominent here. You know what I mean? So in westernized cultures, what is reinforced is modernism. Oftentimes, in most other cultures, what is reinforced is traditionalism. However, you do have a mixture of the two, but the question is what holds as the dominant over one another? Is it more of a modern way of thinking, or is it more of a traditional way of thinking? You know? But then that goes into the nuances of what is considered to be modern or what is considered to be traditional. To give an example,
Divestment.
when it comes down to other countries outside of the US, you know, what is more held is the dynamic of the nuclear family. However, the nuclear family is not seen as a prominent thing in the US anymore because of the reinforcement of other communities that reinforces a dynamic of, well, it's a free for all and every individual deserves what they individually want, let alone what is in need and what others may need collectively. There's more individualism that is more prominent in westernized cultures compared to the collectivism that is more prominent in other cultures. And I think that's one of the issues where, yes, women in the West, they get their own job. They can have, their own money. They can have their own house, have whatever they want on their own. Great. Women in other countries can do that too. But
Right.
what is the divider is that women in more westernized cultures believe that having their own is number one, whereas women in other cultures believe having their own contributes to the collective. And I believe oftentimes when it comes down to westernized cultures, the reinforcement of only thinking about the individual is what we have that has created right now when it comes down to passport bros and the divestor movement. Because it ends up putting people in situations that they don't necessarily find value in making sure they work through, because just flat out across the board, two people that are different coming together have to work through things to come to a mutual understanding on things, you know. And I would even go as far as saying this, more so in westernized cultures, there's always this intent of believing that in relationships there's always a dominant and submissive dynamic, and I think that's bullshit. It should be more of a dynamic of complementarity, being complements to one another. Yeah, she might be good at this. Let me learn from her when it comes down to what she's good at. And then with me learning these things, I can also enhance our relationship and vice versa. But mind you, also another dynamic that gets in the way when it comes down to us coming together is the concept of hypergamy, which is traditional, but we have modern women wanting their cake and eating it too, as far as hypergamy, but then at the same time, they are not traditional women. And that could be contributing to the passport bro community.
I mean, well, if you think about it, the passport bro community is, I think that they are meeting traditional women, women who were brought up in a traditional way,
Right.
where they were raised not necessarily to be a wife, but they were raised in a way where they learned, I guess, how to be independent, but they also, I'm sorry, had that compliment factor where they learned how to, you know, be in partnership with a man
A good amount
and
that,
have
and
a
that's what
husband.
it that's also what it means to be a wife too. When
Yeah.
you're learning how to be, and sometimes I go back and forth on using the word partner or partnership. I like to say compliments to one another. When you are complimenting one another, when it comes down to the husband wife dynamic, you know, because and I'll put it out there. The main reason why I don't like using the word partnership, because partner ties directly to a dynamic of contractual agreement, which reinforces a business dynamic.
Yeah, but I'm not thinking about it in terms of that way.
I know
You know
you
what I
not.
mean?
I know you not. But
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
oftentimes, let's be real about it. When it comes down to people out there that listen to us, oftentimes when we hear partner, it's often in a business arrangement. And then when you're thinking about love, affection, intimacy within a business dynamic, that's like water and oil.
I mean, I get that.
You know what I'm saying?
I
So,
I don't think, and here's what bother. This is what kind of bothers me the most. Western women. I'm gonna just go ahead and say Western women, not, or I don't know, modern women, not Western women, because you could be
yeah,
a
yeah.
modern woman and not be in the
In the
West. So
West, right?
I'm just gonna say modern women.
Yeah,
That's where I'm gonna go. Modern women, I think, have the ability to be traditional. I believe that everything is a choice,
I
and
agree.
I believe when they decide to make the decisions that they make, that's not something that they can't change. They choose to be that way, so they choose to be independent minded. They choose to focus more on their career goals or their self development or whatever have you, and then kind of put like the relationship part of it second, right? And so you have the other women that are more traditional, where it's probably vice versa. It's
It
probably
is.
vice versa,
It is. It is. Oftentimes, it
and
is.
that's where it's happening.
Like what, and you say the word choice, making a choice.
I think it's all choice. I
It,
mean,
it all, at the
that's
end of
how
the
my
day,
mind would.
it is all choice. But what are the reasons why said choices are being made? When it
Oh,
comes down to
absolutely,
when it
absolutely.
when it comes down to, like, to give an example, when it comes down to the passport bros, are you making this choice because you had a bad breakup? There was a particular, because this also happens too. There was a particular divorce that this man went through that was so traumatic, that he was just like, you know what, fuck this. I'm not ever going to be with another American woman ever again. And he goes. Or was it a dynamic of, well, I'm not being able to find what I'm looking for here, because I'm tired of trying to force a dynamic where a woman can work with me and she is choosing not to because she feels she has more value being disconnected from me. So let me go ahead and go somewhere else where women understand the value of being connected to men. You know, there are a lot of arguments that can be made. You know, when it comes down to stuff. You know what? I'm gonna just go ahead and do this. I'm gonna do this. Um, how can I say this? Uh, I am not a passport bro, but I got my passport before the coin term passport bros. I'll just put that out there. You know, my wife is from Africa. She's from there. You know, what I did realize with dating in the States, what I did realize was I know when it comes down to my personality just did not work well with a lot of women that I was dating in the States. Now, mind you, majority of the women I dated were in my race. I was dating majority of black women. Majority. I, dabbled interracially. But at the end of the day, it was just about trying to find someone that I could be with. It wasn't about the dynamic of, even when I dated interracially, it wasn't about the dynamic of, well, I don't want to be with black women because A, B, C, D, F, and G. No, it wasn't about that. Even with me dating overseas, because I dated overseas also. Okay? It wasn't about the dynamic of, I can't be with black women. It was about the dynamic of, I'm just trying to find someone I can be with, that I can vibe with, and we can go ahead and make this life together. However we do it. You know? I've been with women who didn't have degrees. I've been with women who have degrees. You know? At one time, I didn't have degrees. At one time, I eventually got my degrees.
I just want to. I don't want to cut you off, but that kind of really bothers me, and I say that because
Okay.
I don't think that education or your level of education should define who you should be with. I've
But
always
it
thought that, and I'm
but
like,
it
y'all are missing
does.
the whole point.
I agree with you, but oftentimes, especially in modern society, when it comes down to the American
Oh yeah,
perspective, you do have more, and I will, and let's just put this out there when it comes down to the black community. You know what I'm saying? Black women outnumber any other dynamic or any other demographic when it comes down to being more enrolled. Not necessarily having more degrees, but more enrolled in college. Okay? Essentially
yeah,
having more education in that sense, not necessarily the degrees. However, you do have, because of hypergamy, you do have women that will say things such as, because I've experienced it. I've had a woman tell me at the time that I didn't even have my degrees, tell me because I wasn't college educated, it would take a year for me to finish what I needed to finish for me to be a suitable mate to her. I
okay,
can't make
yeah.
this shit up.
Mhm.
And this was an American woman.
I hear this on the Kendra G show, not from Kendra, but from
Right.
like the people
From
no, no,
from
I've heard it. Yeah.
it's all within hypergamy because let's be real about it. Hypergamy is essentially is any woman who wants to be with a quality man is always looking for the highest bidder. Always looking. But when do you settle for the appropriate bid? Or are you properly bidding? If we're talking about the aspect of gambling. You know what I'm saying? So it's this thing where you have women who end up saying, well, if I have my bachelor's, I need to be with someone either equal level or more. That's just another dynamic of hypergamy that has been branched out more, which reinforces one's individualism. You know?
Yeah. No,
Because
no.
because
Well, yeah.
you could have someone who has their bachelor's degree and they're making, let's just say, let's give it $50,000 a year. But you could have someone who has their trades, and we've talked about this before, who has their trades when it comes down to, let's say, plumbing, and they're making over 80,000.
Or you can have somebody that's searching for, now this is rare, this is a unicorn, but it does happen. You can have someone like Robert De Niro, who didn't even finish high school, but blew up later. So that's what I'm like, come, he openly said that. He said, "Oh, I didn't finish high school." He said that in an interview. They asked him what high school he went to. Robert De Niro was basically like, "Oh, I don't know because I didn't finish
Didn't
high
finish high
school."
school
But he
on
focused
his
on what he
craft.
wanted to do
Right.
on his craft, and and the rest is history.
You got
I think
you got some of
you
these
know,
tech giants such as Bill Gates who didn't even finish college,
yeah.
but are billionaires. You know what I'm saying? Like,
That's the same way I'm telling you I feel about, and I think all of this falls under the modern, way of thinking about relationships. Oftentimes what I hear again, on the Kendra G show. Kendra, I watch you, Kendra. I'm talking about you, girl. Not, well, not about you, Kendra, but it's, and this is what this blows me to the. This is my DC part coming out. Y'all, this irks the shit out of me. Every time I hear this, it irks my soul. I can't get more DC than that, okay? Because I don't know nobody else who say irk, okay? Um, if she asks a question like, does a man need to make a certain amount of money? Oftentimes you'll hear yes, and then Kendra will say, okay, how much? And then they'll follow up with, well, he needs to be at least where I am, or higher,
or
or
higher.
he needs to be higher. And then she'll say, well, how much do you make? And then these are the ones that kind of blow me, because they'll say, oh, I make $100,000 a year. There was another lady on there that made $200,000 a year. And then she had like this millionaire one day. So Kendra, who is, I guess, in her own right of celebrity status, I like how she gives realistic data to those women. And she does, if you watch that show. But what I don't like is that, okay, if you make $100,000 a year, I'm not, listen, ladies, I'm not saying it's wrong to want a man that's on the same financial playing field as you. If that's what you want, then that's what you want. But here's my thing about it. The reason behind it, this is what blows my mind. They're like, because I want to be able to keep up with my lifestyle. And if he's not making as much as I'm making or more, then how can we keep up with my lifestyle? And how can, I like to travel and go on trips. My thing is like, then he doesn't necessarily need to make as much as you make. He needs to be able to support himself and be ready to if you want to go on a trip, or if you want to do something, as long as he can, he'll have it for that, then he should be fine. That's what I'm thinking. If you live according to your means, you should be fine. If his means doesn't require $100,000 a year, I don't think it's right to ask him to make that much.
I
So that's
think
where my mind is
the women who
with it. His
say
lifestyle, not his means, his lifestyle.
the women who automatically go to, because I going back to this little thing I say 666 is the devil. 666 is the devil. Six figures, 6 feet, 6 inches. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? Or more than six, like, is the devil. Where inevitably that just only reinforces a woman who believes in hypergamy, reinforces her self-centeredness and selfishness. Where my thing is, that is not a woman to be with. But then also the six in reference to the six figures, and saying, well, $100,000 a year is great. The reason why they're reaching for that is because most women are saying that. But then the aspect of most women saying that is only reinforcing one's lack of financial literacy. Because there's a lot of things you can do with $60,000 a year. There's a lot of things you can do with $80,000 a year. 50,000, yeah, a lot you can do. depending on how you work your money,
Yeah.
depending on you understanding financial literacy to a certain extent. And oftentimes, these women who are saying these astronomical amounts that are often within, real talk, 3% of the men that they believe are fucking suitable mates. You know, if we want to really get into statistics.
Well, it's funny you said that because that's something that Kendra mentions. So Kendra, you are my mind child. Kendra mentions on her show a lot of times when the women are asking for those numbers is that, do you think that a man that's making this kind of money is gonna be faithful, or is going to be husband material, or he's gonna want a woman like you?
And
So you have to ask yourself those kind of
and
questions.
here's another thing. It's not necessarily also about the amount of money the man is making. It's also specifically what he's doing to make that money too. Because
Oh
it
yeah.
looks good when it comes down to a man having a tech career when it comes down to making over $100,000 a year compared to a man who is in construction that makes over $100,000 a year.
Y'all,
You see what I'm
this
saying?
brought me to, I get exactly what you're saying. And again, that's the modern way of thinking. And that brings me to, I'm gonna be real quick, but this just reminded me of something, of a scenario that I went through personally. I'm gonna let y'all look my personal a little bit. Okay. Now he may watch this. Anyway, I've been talking, okay, to somebody, just talking, not never met, and this man makes a lot of money. I'll say that. I think it's over 150 per year. Depending on where you live, that may be a lot. Depending on where you live, that may not be a lot. But that's just his income from his job. He also does trading and stocks and stuff like that. So I believe he makes a lot more than that. That's just what I'm thinking. Anyway, I don't make anywhere near that. Okay. Now, this is a situation where he was trying to pursue me, and we had a conversation, and what happened in the first two conversations, I wasn't interested. Okay, the money that he made I never really took into account because I'm like, can't even agree like, on like small things. We can't even have a conversation without um respecting each other's opinions on things. That was a big thing to me. Okay, stop calling this person for a good 2 months. Didn't pick up any calls. In a normal situation, if someone is ignoring your calls or you blocked, you would eventually stop calling that person, right?
You get a clue.
This guy reached out to me one day. He called me on like three phone numbers. Y'all. I can't make this up. Left me a message. It was a very heartfelt message and basically said in the message, um, he apologized. And my thing with apologies, like, apologies are okay, but if you don't know what you're apologizing for, don't apologize. Because I don't want an apology that's just like I'm sorry that you felt. I just don't want that. But anyway, what I found interesting in the messages that he said, look, I took a look at myself. He said I dated other women, while I was talking to you, and for some reason, I can't stop thinking about you. And I understand what happened because I feel like I make enough money. And this is what he said. I feel like I make enough money. He said I make good money, and everything was surrounded around the amount of money that he made. In my opinion, in my mind, I'm like, yeah, but that's not what you've missed the total point. That's not what I'm worried about. I don't really care how much money you make. We can't even talk on the phone for an hour without butting heads, right?
Yeah.
And when I told him that, he said, okay, well, let me try again. To this day, we still trying. Okay, we still trying. Now, the tables have turned out here where you have women and men under the same circumstances as him and I are going through. I guess just talking and chit chatting. Matter of fact, we've never even met in person. We just talk on the phone. Okay. Um, and I feel like that was a good example of like, it doesn't matter how much money you make, but he's so used to dating the modern woman, right? That is, I guess, I don't know, like excited or, about status, because I think it's status, right?
Well, I
Like
mean,
you're an attractive man, you make a lot of money. I'm sure that you can get somebody else. And he's like, yeah, but they're not you. I'm like, no, they're not me. But that's obviously what you're looking for, because I'm not interested. It burned him alive, I think, to to try to figure out. He's trying to scratch his head, trying to figure out how come me, how come I just can't get to her? Like, I just don't get it, right? And I think it poses a challenge.
I
I think
mean,
that is going
I
on
think
now with like
a lot of us end up fitting ourselves to what we believe or think or reinforce is the majority. You know, like to give an example, modern women. A lot of modern women believe they know what men want, but they have no clue. A lot of modern men believe they know what women want, but they don't
Yeah,
have a clue.
yeah.
So this also, I believe, contributes to the passport bros and divestor community. You know, where it's now a frustration of, well, men men naturally want to be able to do for a woman. Good men naturally want to be able to do for a woman. Let me modify that. Good men naturally want to be able to do for a woman. But then you have a lot of women. There was a video that came out where a woman said, even being a good man is not good enough now. And my thing is, being a good man is multifaceted. So what the fuck do you mean? When you say that. Where my whole thing is, I take that as code for a good man means someone that you don't believe is attractive. You don't believe is attractive. Where my whole thing is, it's like, are things that are good inevitably unattractive? Where I've experienced when I was during my dating years, I've experienced literally being able to have a conversation with a woman. If I come across as more into details when it comes down to conversation, then that is unattractive. And I had to realize, okay, I just have to understand. Maybe I'm just unattractive to a majority of American women
Mm-hmm.
because I'm very detail oriented. If you say one thing, I associate that thing with a particular thing. And then I'm going to talk about that specifically. Not all not always trying to understand the particular thing you're talking about in reference to you referencing a thing you're mentioning, which is different. But then also, I know me being detail oriented can be unattractive. Me delving into details is unattractive to certain women because they're not like that. And then oftentimes we end up projecting what we actually want out of someone else. And then when we get that thing, we inevitably don't want to have that thing anymore and want to go to something different. That's what's crazy to me. Where it's a thing of later in our latter years, we are consistently floating in this dynamic of still trying to figure out what we want in the first place. For that matter, still trying to figure out what we need compared to what we want. Because a lot of people don't like having a need for something. Because need oftentimes reinforces codependency. Whereas want may reinforce either a sense of seeing another person as just a tool or a means to get to something else, or on the flip side of that, understanding truly what interdependence really means. Being interdependent among one another. Because oftentimes now, there's this flip flop of redefining the definition of what want is. Actual want. Where You got a lot of passport bros, and I'll put it in this perspective. You got a lot of passport bros that are tired of just being seen as only a want and would like to be a need, but will never be a need for women who only want a man versus needing one, because the definition of needing a man means going back to the 50s to that idea of what needing a man was back then, when they're never going to be ever in that era, period. I know I just said a lot there. I know I just said a lot.
No, it's okay.
I'm just saying there's a lot of stuff to unpack where it's like, and I know I'm continually talking about passport bros. I need to get back over to the divestors, but I know for me, and I'll put this out there, me specifically, I dated almost every type of American woman. I've dated every type of American woman. Majority of them have been Black American women, but I've dated almost every type. And the reason why I say almost every type is because I have never specifically, exclusively dated a white American woman. Why? Just for the simple fact that I don't like, my kielbasa being fetishized. You know what I mean? It's just being a fetish. I don't like that. Even though it has happened to me when I was in another country. But it's neither here nor there, right? What I will say is one of the main issues that we have is we are in a culture where we're so individualistic and are so much in our own individual heads on how we see things individually, that we are now have a lot of detachment away from the collective, coming together collectively, understanding things collectively. We are completely detached from that because we are in an environment that doesn't reinforce it. It reinforces individualism, which contributes to more consumers, to a society that reinforces capitalism. And that's another dynamic, which speaks to more of the reasons why certain ideologies, in addition to community, the feminist community was created in the first place, which a lot of women don't want to speak to that in reference to feminist community not necessarily more so being created for the aspect of equality, but more so, created for the aspect of creating more consumers. So more money is going to more companies, that reinforces giving money to more of the ones that are your ones who are more affluent. But that's another dynamic. What you think?
I
You
don't
ain't got
know.
nothing. You ain't got nothing. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and go back to divestors. All right, so
I was gonna say I was gonna say this real quick.
okay,
I don't know if this would fall more on the divestor side or on the passport girl side, but I think that independent woman, the boss chick, right, was birthed. No, yes, was birthed, or this modern way of living and thinking was birthed from the mother who, I guess, chose the wrong man, right? And maybe he didn't stay. And so she was put in a situation where she had to pull herself up by her bootstraps, right? And raise her kids by herself. Out of that situation, she then raised her daughters, look, out of fear of them going through that situation.
facts.
You need to make sure that you have your own this, you need to make sure that you have your own that. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but here's where the problem, not the problem, but where the conflict lies. But then you have this girl who soon who grows up to be this woman with the same mindset. Now she's, boss chick, independent minded, blah 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 blah, and she doesn't know how to detach herself from what she's been raised by, uh, so that she's able to find or mate with someone that she can be a compliment to, and then vice versa.
Ugh.
And I think
Did you
that's
just
the
use the
issue.
word mate? Oh boy.
Yes, don't talk about my words.
Here's why
So
and
speaking
I'm just
of
I'm gonna
me,
get on
you
you real
know,
quick. I'm gonna get
or
on you
maybe
real quick
not
now.
me, but you know what I'm
No,
saying.
no, no.
Like,
I know what you're
and by the
saying, but
way,
I know what you're saying to a certain extent, but then, you know,
oh my God.
I'm gonna just say this. I'm gonna just say this. I gotta say it real quick. Let me just get it in.
But
Let me
not
just get it real
me,
quick.
not me,
No,
because
no,
I
no,
think
no,
I
no.
know
That's
where.
what you said.
No,
That's what
no,
you
because I
said.
know where he's going with this.
That's what
Y'all,
you
I've
said,
been
though.
knowing Frank for a long time. I know exactly where he's going with that word. But go ahead.
Look, all I'm saying
Oh my.
is we already grow up in a black community that reinforces a culture of more so seeing the value of black men just for the sperm that they have to be able to contribute to having
Oh,
children, that reinforces women only seeing men for that sperm and not ever seeing the value of actually being in marriage with men.
I was referring to being in relationship, being in marriage, being with the person.
Fair, however,
Oh my
you know what I'm
gosh.
talking about. You know what I'm talking about. You have
I
more
already know what
women
you're talking about.
you have more women in our community that will more so think that it's okay to just have children first prior to actually securing the ring. Isn't that a fact?
Securing the ring. Now that
Securing the
is
ring
a
is another
conversation.
than that. I'm just saying. You. I'm just saying. Let's be real about this. You have a lot of women that are, and I'm not saying, and and let me give a caveat to this because of a good amount of our men that will just fall within the guidelines of just wanting to have sex, but inevitably they're essentially softened up for the kill when it comes down to just giving off their sperm to a woman that only sees the value within that man for the sperm that they have to contribute because of the fact that they utilize that man for the sperm that they're just more than likely going to willingly give. Okay, that is pervasive within our community, which I think is complete bullshit because you should be honestly securing a ring prior to ever fucking letting that kielbasa even tap anywhere near the tilapia. Okay?
Well, that's not realistic, right?
Well, it's not realistic today, but that's one of the reasons why we are fucking ourselves. I'm sorry, but I get
No,
it.
we're not fucking ourselves.
Look,
Because you were fucking ourselves, we wouldn't be fucking everybody else.
let me tell you.
Okay, we'd be,
Look,
it'd
look.
be all right. Maybe we should be out here fucking ourselves.
All
That's
I'm
what we should
saying,
be doing.
all I'm saying is, it's like I can't. Here's the thing. Here's one of the biggest things. You know, in my mind, if I ever, if I ever was to, have sex with, well, I'll put it like this. There was a particular period of time that I was a little bit immature. You know what I'm saying? But at the end of the day, I was more mature than my immature days. All right, and I think that's with everybody. However, that doesn't exclude for my immature behavior in the past. But my thing was, I understood with having sex that inevitably there's always a child that could have had been born from it. But
Oh
I was
yeah,
always
everybody should
careful.
know that. That's out here
I
doing
was
that.
always careful in addition to understanding the dynamic of if I'm having sex with a woman, that woman, based on her being American, or no, her being American, she has more paternity control than I do. Being able to
But
ensure.
here's the thing with that. If you have to, so that's the thing. So then, if you have to think like that, you should have never, you should have
I
never.
know, I know, I
That
know.
that by itself says that you're not even,
We're not
in the mindset to be
to be
a
together
unit.
if I have to think that.
Yeah,
Fair.
right.
Which speaks to the reason why I ain't got no kids right now. So, here's my thing. So, I believe that in the United States, okay, let's get back to the passport bullshit. You do have men that want to be married. You do have men that want to have kids with their wife. However, you do have a lot of men that have no fucking clue on how to be a husband because they weren't taught. 80%, I'm going to speak black community specifically. 80% of the black community comes from single parented homes, and those single parented homes are parented by single mothers or parented by mothers, because I don't like using the term single mother or single father. Parented by mothers. Okay? So, with that said, okay. But then also in turn, you have a dynamic where you do have men, black men, that are in the lives of those children, but not in the lives of those children to the capacity of how the mother wants that man in said life, because of the reinforcement of how men are seen in this country, which will now speak to the dynamic of men being frustrated and now being like, you know what, fuck this. I don't want to fuck myself, because an American marriage is one way to fuck yourself when it comes down to any of the resources or anything that you have grown to actually gain in this country. So they're like, fuck that. You know what? Let me go somewhere else so I don't have to deal with all of the stress that comes with trying to challenge or be a challenge to an American woman that now automatically or has the intent of seeing me as a fucking challenge versus just seeing me as a man that's trying to work on building something with her.
Because you're on like a competitive playing field. Like that's that modern way. It's they are competing.
Feminism has fucking done this shit. I'm not gonna put it completely on feminism, but feminism is one part, is one major fucking part when it comes down to all this shit. And I'm not saying, I'll put it like this. So I agree with equality, but I more so agree with complementarity. I agree with equality, but I more so agree with complementarity, because equality can also be some of this kind of uneven slope where equality for a few leads to trying to reinforce a sense of supremacy and power over a few. Okay, to give an example, a lot of women within the feminist community try to reinforce, saying that they want equality when in actuality they just want female supremacy. That's what they want. But also the dynamics in which them trying to gain female supremacy, which go into the dynamics of, pay gap, when it comes down to, women not being paid the same as men. But then also we have to look at specific professions, specific titles, in addition to actual types of work, where you have a lot of women that are more wanting to be in the CEO positions, but are less willing to be in, the field when it comes down to construction. You know what I mean? So it's like there's a lot of stuff to unpack as far as reasons why these men, the men who want to find a wife, who want or have a need to try to have some type of nuclear family dynamic, and those are the ones that are going overseas to find their wife. Okay? And maybe the reason why I'm speaking the way I'm speaking is because to some degree I do have a little bit of bias in this, because of the fact that I have a wife from another country, another continent. I do. And I'm trying not to. But one of the things that I realized, me
Stop it.
me dating and dealing with American women, it was always a thing of, no matter what I would do, when it comes down to trying to improve myself to be a better candidate for a woman, it was never good enough. Or the way in which I act naturally is unattractive. How we were talking about before when it comes out of speech. The way we talk, if we're speaking intelligently, that's automatically seen one way versus being seen another way. Which also speaks to the dynamic of being more attracted to a certain other communities compared to the community that you would like to be able to find a prospect from. Which is fucked. Where it's just like, damn, what the fuck do I do to at least try to be myself, but also in turn show said individual that I am a candidate for being seen as a good man that is not going to fuck her up, DV, domestic violence, that is not going to lie, cheat, steal, put her in a twist in any shape or form, not a fucking drug addict. All of the things that list out bullshit that can be brought to the table. The table, metaphorically speaking, because everyone brings something to the table. Get into the divestor community because we haven't talked about that much. Um, for my black women out there who have complete hatred for black men, I'm gonna just say that because that's really what the fuck it is. All right, for those ones out there who have complete hatred for black men. Okay, you know what? Goddamn it, Cynthia G. You know, I know this ain't gonna get to you, but you know, whatever, fuck, I don't care. Cynthia G. For my Cynthia G. Clones out there. All right, for my Cynthia G. clones out there, I'm gonna just say this. Look,
What?
I find it interesting that the impetus for you believing that you are in the running or are deserving or are in competition with other women as far as being able to gain non-black men is based on you reinforcing your disdain, hatred, and contempt for black men. I find that interesting because you do have black men that do that. Let's keep it a buck. You got black women that do it, you got black men that do it. Now we have a specific community that we could label as divestors that are black women that will specifically say, at least a good amount of them, not all of them, because you do have some that won't even acknowledge the presence of black men on this earth. But let's keep it a buck. Black men and black women, you do have them do that. Here's my whole thing. Why? What have you gone through when it comes down to pain dealing with the opposite sex that reinforces you going to someone not within your own race? If that's the case, if you are saying, well, I am doing this because of them, in that way, because we already know got a lot of black women on the internet that will check black men that will say shit like, well, I don't date black women because probably, they'll say some shit about like colorism. You know what I'm saying? Well, I like lighter women, or I like women. I don't like black women no more. Say some dumb shit, right? And you'll check them, but then when it comes down to the divestors, they get a pass to some degree.
So I thought that divestors was, and I think we talked about this a little bit before, but I thought divestors was not entirely defined as a black woman that dated white men. I thought it was that they could be defined as um, women or black women who either dated outside of their race, or who were single,
There are
who were lesbian, things like
there
that. Yeah.
there are TikTok groups that have been created in reference to videos that have been created of specifically black women being in these divestor group communities that will reinforce them coming together to help each other to find their either white men or non-black men.
Okay. Okay.
That's cringe to me. It's cringe. I can pull up videos where you can hear audio of how these women talk down on black men in various ways. Mind you, you've only gotten a taste of what Cynthia G has said. There's a whole movement and community and multiple women, black women, that legitimately have hatred toward black men for various reasons. And I don't know all the reasons, and I'm not going to diminish what their reasons are. But
But there are some.
no reason should reinforce you believing that a baby should never be born because they're black and a male.
Yeah, I don't. I think that that was to the extreme, and I don't know what
How
prompted
often
her to say that. I just
how
don't get it.
how often do we in this modern time, and it's all of us, men and women, how often do we in this modern time reinforce extremes to paint a certain narrative about taking a certain action? How do we often do it? We It's so pervasive now. Where I give you one example, I can do bad all by myself. What does that say? And we've heard women say that. We've heard black women say that. I can do bad all by myself. What are you saying? Are you saying that any man you come in contact with is going to be negative, period? When it's not necessarily any man you come in contact with, it's usually the men that you have come in contact with based on certain stipulations because of hypergamy or how you see hypergamy because it's always curtailed to the individual woman.
I mean, I've said that, but it wasn't for any of those reasons that you mentioned. So I don't know.
I think there's just too much. I'll put it like this: there's too much hatred going on when it comes down to both the divestors and certain ones within Passport Bros. I believe there is too much of um, lack of community going on, lack of collectivism going on. You know, like even some ones will say, well, me as a black man being married to someone that wasn't born within my own culture, I'm a sellout. Not saying that anyone would say that. My wife is still black, but more so you have a lot of black people that will say, well, she's not black per se, she's African, which she is, but she's also black if we're talking about pigmentation, you know?
Yeah, I know.
Anything else you got?
No, I don't. I don't have anything else. I just kind of wish that both of these things, like the divestor movement. I'm sorry, please forgive me, y'all. I literally just learned about this like recently, but the divestment movement, and passport bros. Um, the whole thing makes it difficult for regular people that just want to date somebody that is compatible with them. That's all I have to say. If you're just a person looking to date someone who is compatible with you and who share similar interests, and you just want to get a chance to meet someone, it makes the conversations a lot more, I don't know, just kind of difficult to have because it's just like now you're kind of picking apart every little thing. um I don't know. It has made dating just very challenging for people. And to make it clear, I'm not dating, but I'm just saying for those people who are, I've been there, done that, and it's kind of like, I don't know. And I'm all for like family and marriage and all that, but I don't think it's for everybody. Now, I think that if you want to date outside your race, or if you want to marry outside your race, I believe in being with whoever makes you happy. That's kind of where I stand on it. Um, what passport bros are doing, I don't necessarily. I'm not really I'm not against it if the allegations that have come across them as far as the trafficking and the sexual tourism and things like that are untrue. I don't know if that stuff is true or not, right? I'm not following them that closely to know if it's true.
I think it's true
Um,
to a certain extent, but also we have to be understanding that this is something that also, like, here's another funny thing. So I don't know if it was in the 80s or 90s, but there was a particular period of time when there was a lot of Black American women that were bringing over Nigerian men to the states and marrying them, like legitimately marrying them, and that's also not talked about. But then you also have what are called girls trips. You know what I'm saying? Where end up going to the Caribbean or other places where essentially women go to another country to get their cheeks clapped. You know what I'm saying? Like everybody is doing everybody is doing essentially the same shit. I'm gonna just
yeah.
say that, just flat out. Everybody is doing the exact same shit, but we're delving into double standards when it comes down to if it is a man or if it's a woman.
I don't disagree with that. Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I mean, um, yeah, I'm not disagreeing with that, but I think trafficking is a serious allegation. And I would hope that that's not going on. I'm like, because then you're talking about like the sale of something or the trade of something. And I'm just like, if it
I mean,
that's
we
serious.
could.
I mean, I don't know if they're going to that
I
extent
mean,
to
but we
do that.
can we could
I don't
also
know.
we could also delve into the aspect of the whole Jeffrey Epstein's and Ghislaine Maxwell's type shit going on, where Ghislaine Maxwell was literally trafficking girls to these sex parties. You know what I'm saying? Like it was nothing over a course of decades. You know, where it's like it's so crazy. It's like the perfect person to get a girl to want to do something like that is a woman. That's crazy. All the craziness is going to work, and I'm not saying that to detract from what sex trafficking is going on when it comes down to the men that's doing and pulling the bullshit. However, it's a lot of bullshit going on that don't need to happen at all whatsoever. Period. By man or woman.
Yeah.
I think that's more so what I'm trying to get at. The sex tourism stuff. I think inevitably is gonna happen because motherfuckers are gonna you work so hard in a country where dominantly people only value you in the United States for the work that you're providing when it comes down to whatever company you work for, whatever. And then you work so hard, get your coin, right? And you focus mainly on work while you're here. Motherfuckers going to clap cheeks and get their cheeks clapped. But they can't do it here because everybody's fucking working. Or their focus is on just work. That's what often capitalism reinforces. Just being about work only. Focusing on gaining coin. That's it. There's nothing else. There isn't anymore. I think that's a major problem. A major problem when it comes down to both of those communities. Passport bros and fucking divestors. That's a major problem.
Mm-hmm.
You know, passport bros, dynamic of put in so much work. You're only seen for the value of the money that you're inevitably bringing in a relationship, but you want to be seen more than that, and believing that you're going to be able to gain it from somewhere else, another country, another woman in another country who was raised in another culture. Divestors don't want to be taken advantage of. A good amount of them, not saying all of them, don't want to be taken advantage of when it comes down to dusty black men specifically, or dusty Western men, because it's multi layered. And now it's just reinforcing a sense of, well, I just don't want to deal with even thinking about what intent I have in mind in reference to how I see said man. So let me go ahead and go
Mm-hmm.
for another man that I think is going to treat me better just because they're different in my mind. They're different from the man that either I've experienced or have been told about and now I fear. I'm done talking. You got anything more to say?
No, that's it.
Another episode, Real Raw Exchange Podcast. Y'all take it easy. Have a wonderful week. Bye.
Bye bye.